So Gideon T114 asks, can you remake South Park the video game next? I believe I can.
Hi, Chef.
Hello, children. Did you hear the news?
What news?
A big comet is headed our way. It's gonna cross paths with the Earth, and when it does, all kind of crazy, spooky stuff is gonna happen.
Spooky like how?
Spooky like you better get your asses indoors, children. I'm not kidding. Our lives are in danger.
What the hell is that about? Man, Chef is weird.
Dark times, bruh. Dark times.
So as you can see, when I was making this, I was going a bit more for the Stick of Truth modern versions of the games and the Fractured Butthole, as well as trying to make it look as much as I could like the actual show. And I think it turned out pretty well. Let's get on to the development side of it. So first I had to look for the characters. I went onto the Spriter's resources, but didn't like the quality of anything that was there, so I decided to download the full quality characters from the actual fandom itself. Once I got them, I was happy enough. I managed to go into one of those character creators, install all the eyes and mouths so I could use to create the custom animations for the character speaking. After that I had to get a couple of backgrounds, so I just went on to Google Images, got a couple of backgrounds from that as well as Chef's car, and I was ready to start building out the first scene. So in the timeline in Unity I managed to set up the scene so the car would drive in, the characters would speak, and have it all play out like that. Once I was happy with how the initial input was looking, I decided to start working on Chef. So I downloaded a high quality version of Chef like I did with the other characters, started to chop out the eyes and the mouth as well as the head so I could make the head animate while he was in the car. And once into Unity I just cleaned up the assets, separated them onto separate sprite sheets, and then brought in the eyes, the mouth, and started to bring that into the timeline and edit that as well. So as you can see from here, I was using the timeline as well as the animation component in Unity to start building out the mouth sequence to match the audio sequence from the original gameplay. After that then I started to work on the kind of head tilt that the characters do, and then straight on to Kenny, because Kenny also has a speaking part in this, so he needs his head tilted animation as well essentially. So I spent a bit of time working on this, and I could finally preview how it looked, and it had that kind of jittery, kind of almost stop motion look to it as well, so I was happy enough with that. Brought in the rest of Chef's body, animated it all together, and the next thing was to obviously add in some camera pans as well and zoom ins to make it feel more like it was actually from the show. After that I downloaded the full map from the fandom as well. I could use that then to start building out the town that I was going to use. As you can see from this, I was creating the houses from scratch because I couldn't find any high quality versions of any of the houses, textures, or any of the other assets other than the characters. This was a lot of work as it involved pretty much creating everything in the scenes from scratch, which obviously took a lot of time. I wanted the houses to have that paper-like texture, so I just put them over them and gave them the soft light and brought down the opacity. After that I started to add in details to the house. Luckily I only need to design one of these because after that all the houses were pretty much the same. So I brought that into Unity to see how it was going to look, dropped it into scene, and realized I had to go back and actually remove the texture from the rest of everything else and get rid of the white background as well. And so I was happy with that. I brought Cartman in just to get an idea for scale. I had the show open next to me so I could actually use that for scale. And then I started to add in his mouth and eyes as well. After that it was just a matter of duplicating the houses and changing the colour so I could create the rest of the street. Then I went into Animate to try and posterize or trace over these bushes that you see everywhere. It took me a couple of tries, but once I got it I started to drop them into the scene in Unity itself. Then I was back to the town map to create the actual road itself. Once I had the road done, it was back into Photoshop to place that in where I needed it to be, in front of the houses. A couple of modifications, not too bad. And then I had to design the back fence and pretty much start to build out the rest of this scene. At first I wasn't sure how I was going to do this, but once I actually started, it pretty much just fell into place. I kind of hit a rhythm with it. So I brought that back into Unity, added in a couple of more assets to kind of break it up, and then started to work on the background mountains. Now I knew I wanted this to be parallaxing, so I had to design the actual backgrounds first before bringing it into Unity and adding the parallax effect. Right now the mountains are just cut out from an image I found online from the South Park game, I believe, but I came back later on and touched these up. I did the same thing with trees. I knew I was going to parallax these as well, so I got them in place and then started to push them all back, added a bit of parallax code, and you can see here from the camera movement that they work just like you see in Stick of Truth. So I added in the extra couple of houses and then instantly started to work on the turkey. So the turkey is obviously a big part of this game for the PS1 and Xbox, or PS1 and a Nintendo 64. So I obviously took the design from the show itself. Wasn't too hard to find some reference for that. Once I was happy, I broke it up in Animate so I could actually bring it back into Unity and piece it all together so I could animate the turkey in motion. As you can see here, I'm just placing the body parts and just setting their order in layers as well. Now, once that was done, it was trying to place him in and get an idea for rough scale, so I just put him next to Cartman. And then I can start to animate him. So it's just a simple kind of hop left and right, and he flaps his wings, so that's what I'm working on now. And here's the final animation. After that, I had to design the rest of Cartman's directions, so facing sideways and facing backwards. It was easy enough to modify these images. Perfect. After that, it was just a matter of animating them all in Unity. Once that I was happy enough with that, I set up all the colliders on the actual scene itself so I could walk Cartman around. Now with that set up, you can see here that the colliders are all working. And here's just a little view of the town from walking around in it. After that then I just got the turkey to start following the character as well. And getting all the directions just feeling a little cleaner as well as the parallax background. The biggest task here was actually designing a lot of props to populate the world, so I obviously took a lot of screenshots from the game, South Park and the Stick of Truth, and then into Animate to start tracing in around these. This wasn't a overly tedious task, but definitely one that took somewhat the longest. But again, after about 2 or 3 of them, I started to get really into the rhythm of it. So once I was finished designing all them, it was just a matter of sending them out in a grid, so in Unity I could break them up by sprite. Once I was done that, it was just a matter of actually dropping them into the scene themselves. It took a bit of working around with their sorting layers to make it so it worked correctly, but once I did, all I had to do was keep populating the world. Added in these signs that you can see in the Stick of Truth as well, just because this would be the area that we'd actually be playing in. I wouldn't be making any more of the town than this. So as you can see here, just having a little walk around to actually have a look at them and check the sorting layers, make sure everything's working there. Change the pivot point on a couple of the items, brought everything down. This would mean that the pivots would work correctly then for Cartman. You can see that here. And the same with the post box. Now after that, I just wanted to touch up the town itself. It was looking a bit dry, and from looking at pictures of the Stick of Truth, there was definitely a lot more detail, a lot more life in the game itself. So that's what I was working on here. Making it just not look so procedural and clean. Perfect. Once I was happy with that, again, I just walked around the town to have a look at it, and it all started to look really, really good together. So then I started to work on Cartman's hand. So originally I was going to do it this way, so the hand would be a separate item, and the Cartman would be able to throw snowballs that way. I eventually changed this so it was actually just 2 graphics, so you got more of that kind of stop motion look instead of fluid motion with the hands. Fixing all the pivot points on the character. You can see me dropping in the hand here, bringing that over and changing the sorting layers. Again, I changed all of this anyway to just 2 graphics instead. Yep, so there you can see there I've changed it to just 2 graphics, set up the throw animation, so Cartman would just always have that kind of throw animation no matter what direction he's looking. Now, added a little animation further to it just so he'd lean and make a little hop. And you can kind of see it there. Now, after that I had to actually create these snowballs, so back into Photoshop then to just draw out a little snowball. Once I was happy with that, brought it back into Unity, put it into Cartman's hand. I then had to change all the animations so the snowball would follow it. And then of course turn the snowball off whenever it is meant to be thrown. So you can see me kind of throwing the snowball here, but it's not really going anywhere. I had a couple of issues with my sorting layers. I didn't realize it was a physics and a physics 2D. So you can see here me messing with the physics, but it's still hitting into Cartman even though it's meant to ignore it. And then I realized it was a physics 2D. Turned them off and boom, you can actually throw snowballs all over the place. So I jumped into Photoshop again, created a little Photoshop break animation, or a snowball break animation. Set that up in Unity, just gave them all their own individual bounding boxes. Dropped one of them in, created a new animation, and set all the animation keyframes. After that, it was just a matter of setting it up so that would activate once a snowball was thrown. You can see a little bit of that here. So the snowballs will hit the turkey and knock him back. Obviously, it was a bit extreme here, but with a couple of tweaking, it actually started to feel good. I then managed to get the turkey sound from the show itself, so I could add that in. You heard that at the start of the video. And then I had to add some kind of turkey death animation then. So they just basically flop their wings up and then contort down, and that's pretty much it. I thought that was more than enough for this. Just set that up so the turkey could actually die once it lost all of its health. Setting up the turkey's health, making sure it takes damage when it comes in contact with the snowball. So we can see this here, kind of killing the turkeys. After that, I wanted to animate some of the props. In the Stick of Truth, you can actually interact with the likes of mailboxes and bins, so I just wanted to give that same effect. And you're not able to interact with them, but the snowballs hitting off them will cause them to shake. So I think that's just a nice little feature that makes the world feel more alive. I did the same thing then with the bin. Right, after that I just dropped in some of the actual round code from the Mr. Bean game I was working on, but clearly that wasn't working. I had done something wrong, so a little bit of fixing up of the code and we were good to go again. The rounds were working as they were supposed to. You kill one turkey, boom, round end, so on and so forth. After that, I just had to actually add in some nice UI elements to just make it look a lot better. So here's the first turkey. He can attack you, you can attack him. Round 2 starts, and you got 2 turkeys. So obviously it's very different to the actual South Park game, but more or less it gets the point across. After that, I created an actual sign, the sign you see at the end of the intro. That would just control our death screen, how many kills, how many rounds, so on and so forth. So you can see me just adding that in here. So that'll prop up once Cartman runs out of health. And once I was happy and ready to test that out, I just decided to jump in with some gameplay. So you'll see then when Cartman dies at the end here that the sign will pop up just to show that Cartman has died. Gets overrun here by them. Boom, kills 45 or to restart. And now I'll just jump in and show you just a little bit more of it then. As you can see, you can get quite competitive kind of thing. I didn't put any health in the game itself because the turkeys themselves are easy enough to kill. So it's kind of just more so just a survival game, see how long you can go, I guess. And then once Cartman dies, should be now in a second, you can see now it says rounds as well. After that, the last thing to do was actually fix up the last of the low quality assets, so I jumped in to animate again just to redraw Chef's car, because that was the last low resolution thing in the actual game itself. So you can just see me here tracing over all the shapes because I wasn't about to redraw this whole thing myself. And those window streaks to make it look more like it's part of the PC game as opposed to the original game and the show. Separated the wheels onto separate layers as well, so I could actually animate them in Unity as well. Once I had all them separated, it was time to go back into Unity and actually start placing all them. So I had to replace the old car with the new one, brought in the wheels and had them animate in the same style that we're used to from South Park. Now, and that was pretty much it. That was the last thing I actually had to do, other than cleaning up some of the mountains and some other bits. But yeah, so I'll end the video here with some gameplay in real time. This was a great project to work on. It took me about 3 days, I think, to make all together. I really appreciate the suggestion to work on this. Originally when I came in, I didn't think I'd actually touch it because obviously the original Nintendo 64 and PS1 game looked quite rough. But then lying in bed that night, I thought about why not turning it into a more modern Stick of Truth / Fractured Butthole style game, and yeah, pretty much since that I couldn't get out of my head until I started working on it. So yeah, don't forget, if you have any suggestions for future games, to leave them in the comments, because you might get featured in one of these like this. And yeah, if you enjoyed it, you can find the download link in the description. Be sure to play it. It's filled with bugs, but it's also filled with like kind of nostalgic bliss. The gameplay is different than the actual original game, but at the same time it's just a fun little homage to the original PS1 game. And yeah, if you want to see more of these, don't forget to subscribe, and hopefully we'll be back soon with another video. Thanks for watching.